Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be a quote-unquote showcase for my attempts at making a lunge build in last Epoch. So, I actually got a comment recently that was complaining that I was putting a lot of very high-end items into my builds, and they're like, hey, you should use that money to do a bunch of stupid stuff. And I was like, you know what? Sure, why not? And instead of spending any currency whatsoever, I actually went out of my way to spend as little currency as humanly possible. So this is actually probably one of the cheapest builds I've ever played, unironically. And that's mainly because why the heck would you ever play this? And what we're playing today, we're playing Lunge as a damage skill. Now, this has a long and storied history, but before we get into that, I would heavily suggest leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as that helps me work on stuff like this on the free time that I have every day. Now, let's talk about the history of Lunge. So, Lunge used to give a very large amount of crit chance after being used for about 4 seconds. I think it was like 300% crit chance, and it had a lot of other utility on its tree. And that was the old version of Lunge. And well, sadly, due to Sentinel having something usable in its kit, EHG looked at that and that's no can do, sir, no can do. So they actually ended up reworking Lunge. Now, the problem is, I asked them, I was like, hey guys, if you're going to rework Lunge and remove all the good utility out of it, what are you going to do with it? I was like, well, we're obviously going to make it do damage. I'm like, oh, cool. A Lunge build that actually does damage? That would be kind of cool because, you know, like, that sounds cool, like making a build out of Lunge and making it actually do damage. Wouldn't that be cool? That sounds cool. So I was like, sure, you know what? Fine, I will put down my pitchfork for now. And then Lunge came out and the rework, it was very bad. Lunge right now, the difference between a specialized lunge and an unspecialized lunge is very, very low. It's actually one of the worst skills in like Sentinel to specialize. There's very niche interactions that it can have, but for the most part, it's dead in the water in terms of an actual skill. So I was like, you know what? Due to this commenter's comment, let's make a Lunge build work. So that's what I did. So what happened was I ended up taking a 3LP Sierpen's Fractal tree, because no one's playing melee right now because of the rubber banding stuff, and it's kind of meh right now. So this 3LP Sierpen's Fractal tree was, I think it was like 1,000,000 gold, and I bought it and I hit the double exalted on it, which I was very happy with. The reason why the double exalted was very cheap, because no one's playing with spears right now, because there's no reason to use a spear in 99% of situations, especially because after the nerfs to Serpent Strike, there's almost no reason to use a spear unless you're playing Lunge. That's because Lunge has a node inside of it that gives you 9% base crit if you're using a spear, which actually worked really well for us because Sierpen's Fractal tree is actually a very strong item. The only problem is it has the unfortunate problem of being on a spear. But thankfully with this Sierpen's Fractal tree, we can try to make Lunge work. And this on top of all of my other gear, something like a 3LP, you know, Peak of the Mountain. I actually didn't buy this for this character. This was from a different character, so I got it for free technically. And the rest of the gear isn't really expensive at all. I went out of my way to make it as cheap as possible, for the most part, right? Like maybe like 100k at most for like each of these pieces. And this is what we ended up with, a Lunge build, quote unquote, right? Now it's funny because like it does okay damage. It's like doing like 200k crits on the dummy, which, you know, sounds great and all until you realize that Lunge has like a 3-second cooldown. Now, of course, with some of the nodes on the tree, like I'll pop up here, you can actually reduce some of the cooldown utilizing this node, which means that, you know, like you can actually lunge more than like once every 4 seconds, which is cool, right? You get some cooldown on your gear, makes it feel a bit better. But the biggest problem with Lunge by far, if you're watching the footage, isn't even the damage, it's the clear. So the way that Lunge works is there's this final hit area at the end of the lunge, and since you're reusing a spear, right, it hits in a rectangle. And the problem is this AoE is very janky. It's very hard to tell where your AoE actually is. And I'll be honest, like, the AoE should be humongous for this kind of thing. Like, if they're gonna make this not do that much damage, it would be cool if like the AoE was actually big. Like, it'd be cool if it actually hit more than like a few mobs at a time, but this is the challenge that we've put ourselves against, is trying to make lunge do damage. So yeah, it's going somewhat okay. Obviously, don't play this. I'm gonna laugh at all the people who try to play this because they blindly click on things and not watch the actual video and just click on the planner down in the description. So I hope someone actually does that, because that would be kind of funny, to be honest. It would be, just desserts, reward for me putting in all this effort. This has been a side project over the past like maybe few weeks now, where I've just been yucking around and trying to make this work. And the first concept I tried to make it work with was with the boots that give you more damage every 3 seconds, the Veon's chariots. And it didn't really work because with the way that I currently have it set up, you kind of want to be spamming lunge as much as possible to try to get as much damage as possible in, because you're not really doing that much damage. So one cool thing about the spear version of lunge, I don't know if this is the case with the other versions of lunge, but there's 2 different AoEs involved with lunge. There's the one where it does melee damage along the path of lunge, and then there's one that makes it so it does final hit damage. Now, if you aim it properly, you can actually hit an enemy with the path of lunge and the final AoE hit on lunge at the same time, meaning you can actually get a double hit on lunge, which boosts our single target significantly. Now, thankfully, we have a bunch of other things that are helping us, like Abyssal Echoes giving us 20% more damage in its tree, also applying all the armor shred for us, because we're sure as hell not applying the armor shred with this character. So having Abyssal Echoes apply armor shred for us is great. Then they recently buffed Vengeance to be able to give us 20% more damage on single target. That's great. It makes it feel a lot better, getting us to decent numbers, right? Cool. And then of course, use reversal, obviously, because you're not stupid and you get like the 60% increased damage taken from enemies. The only problem with this build is like I didn't go for the melee damage belt. That could have boosted my damage a little bit more. But like the problem is like you'd have to get cooldown and HP on that, and I already felt kind of squishy as it is, trying to focus all my stuff on damage. So yeah, but yeah, I pushed to 400 corruption with it. I'm pretty happy with the results, unironically. Like, I did everything right. Like, every single choice I made was correct. The only problem is the skill itself is what you would call very mediocre and very bad, and hopefully EHG eventually sees this and buffs lunge to compensate. If I were to say what would fix this problem, make lunge's AoE bigger and more easily viewable, like make it an animation, or maybe kind of like add a node that makes it so you like attack with 3 lunges at once, like whatever you can do. Then maybe, make it so that lunge can, like, I don't know, have higher damage effectiveness. Like, I would say like double or triple. That would make it so that, you could actually do damage with lunge, because if it's going to have a cooldown, it should at least hit very hard. And that's really all I have to say about lunge today. I like doing these meme builds, but the problem is there's always like this weird dichotomy between me doing these meme builds, because one, people think I'm being serious, right? And they think I'm being serious with this and like trying to peddle this as a real build. And 2, I have the other side of the camp that think that like I'm not being serious enough with this kind of stuff. So it's just kind of weird always talking about meme builds, because I like playing meme builds every once in a while, but the problem is people think that like the rest of my builds are memes, which they definitely are not. They're normal builds. This is what I would call a meme build. Now, what's really funny is there's actually a lot of posts on the Discord and on the forums and stuff like that, where like people are talking about how like they're stuck at like 200 corruption, and here the Giga Chad Lunge Paladin at like 400 corruption. Don't play this build, by the way, it's awful. But yeah, it's just very funny and very very interesting to see those kind of things side by side. So if anyone ever complains about being low corruption and says their build is really bad, you should just link them this video to show them that no, they might actually have a certifiable skill issue. Now, with all that being said, this has been Dread. I'll have to go cry and regret all the time that has been wasted on this piece of shit. Bye.